Howard Dean Clouse was born in Kentucky in 1959. In the 1970s, he associated himself with a group of people known as the Jesus Freaks in Central Florida. His family expressed concern when they found him seriously conversing with members of this group at their house. But despite occasionally traveling alongside them, he always returned back to his family. Towards the end of the 1970s, the once influential Jesus People movement, which had been highlighted on Time's 1971 cover for its beachside baptisms and enthusiastic crowds, had started to wane by 1979. Dean had also distanced himself from the group after he met Tina Galen. Tina Lynn was 15 years old when she met Dean, who was 19 at the time. Dean's sister had been dating Tina's brother and would later marry her. The two quickly bonded over the shared tragedy of the death of their father. Tina's dad had died when she was young, and so had Dean's. Dean and Tina were head over heels in love and married only a short time later at the Volusia County Courthouse on June 25, 1979, on January 24, 1980. Tina gave birth to a baby girl, whom the couple named Holly Marie. Both young parents were described as devoted by those around them. Christopher Casasanta, Dean's younger brother, recalled Dean's attentive care towards his small family, always ensuring that their needs were met. Likewise, Tina always carried around her baby book, taking pictures and meticulously documenting her child's first year and milestones. Around the same time that the two were growing into their roles as parents, two of Dean's sisters were also married and expecting, leading the three women to be allowed to share their dream of raising their children together as cousins. However, in 1980, Dean landed a job as a carpenter in the Dallas-Fort Worth metro area, and the couple, along with their baby daughter, was forced to move to Louisville, Texas. While the geographical distance was immense, the couple would regularly write letters to their family in Florida. However, by October of 1980, their families say that they lost contact with the three and stopped receiving letters from the young parents. One media source mentions that Tina's last letter was sent home with pictures of Holly, who was already pulling herself up to stand. This milestone happens around 8 to 10 months of age, which aligns with the other media reports that the last letters sent were from October, when Holly was around 10 months old. On January 12, 1981, a German Shepherd trotted up the driveway of a Houston family's home with a partially decomposed human arm in its mouth. The gruesome find eventually led police to the remains of a man and a woman who were found in a patch of boggy woods beside Wallaceville Road, just north of Houston. The man had been bound, gagged, and beaten to death, and the woman had been strangled. It was believed that the woman was murdered first and that the man died defending her. Investigators also found a pair of green gym shorts and a bloody towel, which had been discarded near their bodies. Detectives believe the slain bodies had been there for at least 2 months, as the police could not find any identification on the bodies. They were dubbed the Harris County Does and buried in a potter's field at the Harris County Cemetery. In the months after the discovery, medical investigators hired a sketch artist in order to create sketches based on photos of the corpses. The two remained unidentified for the next 40 years. In 2011, the Harris County Medical Examiner's Office exhumed the bodies in order to extract DNA. They entered that DNA into CODIS, but as the database was limited to DNA from convicted criminals, no matches were found. In 2021, Misty Gillis and Allison Peacock, two genetic genealogists working for a California-based company, Identifiers International, entered the victim's genetic information into GEDmatch. They then were able to create intricate family trees. Gillis focused on tracing the man's genetic, while Peacock focused on tracing the female's. Soon they were able to connect the couple to a Kentucky family with the surname of Clouse, who had relocated to Florida. By October, the victims were positively identified as Harold Dean, Clouse Jr., and Tina Galen. During questioning, Dean's mother, Donna, said that the family had lost contact with the couple. In October of 1980, Donna added that a few months later, around December of 1980, she received a call from a stranger who said that she was in Los Angeles and had information about Tina and Dean. The woman also told her that she had the couple's car, a 1978 two-door red burgundy MC Concord. This was the same car that Dean took when he relocated to Texas. The woman told Donna to meet her at Daytona Speedway around midnight and to bring $1,000 cash if she wanted the car. The family reported the call to police. When the family went to Daytona Speedway, a group of women drove up in the GMC. One of them, who appeared to be in her 30s, introduced herself as Sister Susan. She, along with two younger companions, wore their long, flowing hair down and were adorned in white robes. The attending family members were told that Dean and Tina had joined their religious group and no longer wished to have any worldly contact with their families. The group then asked Donna to donate $1,000 to them. Donna recalls, quote, "I begged her, I said, let me just call him, I'll talk to him on the phone. I'll know his voice or Tina." The woman told her he has left. At the time, the police reportedly took the woman into custody. However, there is no record of a police report on file, which has been found by media as of yet. In 1981, both families, Dean's and Tina's, tried to report them officially missing. However, police refused to file a report, saying the couple had joined the religious group voluntarily and did not want to be contacted, citing the car's return as evidence of their voluntary disappearance. Months turned to years, and worry turned to panic, which then faded to grief. However, the questions never ceased. Both families eventually reluctantly came to terms with the possibility that Dean, Tina, and their baby girl Holly may actually be traveling across the country with the group associated with the Jesus People movement. However, news that the couple was deceased and not traveling with the Jesus People movement and ignoring their families provided a sense of closure for the family, but initiated many more questions. Allison Peacock, the genealogist working on the case, said, quote, "The biggest surprise came when Dean's sister asked, 'What happened to the couple's baby, Holly Marie?' That was the biggest shock I've ever had in my life. We were focused on finding them. It didn't occur to us that they would have had a child. While the couple's bodies were found, Holly Marie's remains were never located. And so the search for Holly Marie began." With the new information, officials at the Texas Attorney General's office took over the case. Investigators tried to obtain the birth certificate of Holly, but her records were sealed, suggesting either a juvenile record or an adoption. They required a court order to access the information, and once the records were unsealed by a judge, it revealed an adoption certificate, providing crucial details. The adopted parents' names were Philip and Constance McGoldrick, and the state where the adoption took place was Arizona. In June of 2022, investigators announced that they had found Holly Marie. She was alive and well. She was living in Oklahoma with her husband of more than 20 years. She had 5 children and 2 infant grandchildren. Police questioned Philip McGoldrick, who was the Seventh-day Adventist Church pastor in Yuma. They also interviewed his wife. They recall that they had adopted Holly after an encounter on November 8, 1980. When 2 barefoot women in white robes arrived at his church, he said that one of the women presented herself as Holly's mother and gave him the child. They explained their inability to raise her due to their nomadic lifestyle, which prohibited couples from staying together and prohibited the killing of animals for meat or skin. Before the two left, one of the women, whom police believe was Tina, handed the Goldrick a birth certificate, as well as a note purportedly written by Holly's father, Dean, revoking all custody of the girl. The two mentioned that they had given up a baby previously at a laundromat. The pastor raised Holly as his own, providing her a loving home. Although aware of her adoption story, Holly always wondered about her birth parents. Her adoptive parents have been ruled out as suspects in the death of her biological parents. Investigators believed that the group of women belonged to the Christ family, who traveled around the southwestern United States, including in Arizona, California, and possibly Texas. They'd also been spotted around Yuma, Arizona in the early 80s, asking townspeople for food. The group believed in sexual abstinence, denounced materialism, and opposed killing of any kind. As of 2023, police are still investigating the murder of Dean and Tina. Prosecutors say they hope publicity about the case will spark new clues today. Holly says she feels doubly blessed. She feels fortunate after reuniting with her birth family. In the previous year, she was able to develop a bond with her paternal grandmother, Donna, who would later die in October of 2023. If you have any information about the death of Dean and Tina Clouse, please contact Baby Holly Tips at og.texas.gov. Patricia Kopta's life was a blend of normalcy and mystery. She once led a conventional existence in Ross Township, Pennsylvania. She reveled in ballroom dancing, commuted for various jobs, and was a devout Catholic, attending Sunday services every week. Her marriage to Bob Kopta yielded no children, but their life was full, and the couple seemed typical, until a shift in Patricia's behavior changed everything. Over time, Patricia's religious fervor took an irrational turn. She prophesied about a looming nuclear Armageddon, claiming messages from the Mother of God. Her demeanor became erratic, and she spoke of encounters with angels. Losing her job exacerbated this transformation, leading her to roam the streets of downtown Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, warning passersby about impending doom. These messages earned her the moniker, the Sparrow. One time she was beaten and robbed on the streets. After this incident, she became convinced that she was being pursued and believed her fate was to meet a martyr's end. She was then institutionalized for a short while and was later diagnosed with schizophrenia. In the summer of 1992, Bob Kopta arrived home to see that Patricia had vanished. Bob reported her missing on November 27th of 1992. At the time, he told police he had not reported her missing earlier, as it was not uncommon for his wife to, quote, drop out of sight for a short period, but he said that she would always return. He told investigators that Patricia had made statements to other family members that she was planning on leaving, and that she was concerned she was going to be placed into a care facility. He said that she'd even spoke of wanting to go to Puerto Rico. Her husband flew to Puerto Rico and placed ads in the newspapers, hoping to find any leads, but to no avail. Police believed that she left voluntarily to avoid being sent to a mental institution. For years, Patricia's whereabouts remained a mystery. Her husband and her relatives endured the anguish of not knowing what had become of her. Months turned to years with no word from Patricia. Her family began to suspect that she may have died and had her declared legally dead. Police searched for the missing woman for quite some time, and in their desperation to find her, investigators at one point spoke with a psychic who suggested that Patricia had died and that her body was near a body of water. The search for Patricia continued, clouded by uncertainty, until 2022, when authorities got a call from an agent from Interpol. They also received a message from a social worker from Puerto Rico. The two believed that a woman who had been placed in an adult care home in Puerto Rico was actually the missing woman, Patricia Kopta. In March of 2023, police finally determined that the woman was in fact Patricia through a 9-month-long process in which they compared DNA samples provided by her sister Gloria Smith and her nephew. It was found that Patricia was located, wandering the streets of Puerto Rico. Back in 1999, she was taken to a nursing home for care, but remained tight-lipped about her true identity or her origins. Patricia Kopta eventually developed dementia. As the dementia progressed, she began to share key details about her past life in Pittsburgh in America to nursing home staff, which led them to investigate further. Patricia has reportedly told her care workers that she wants to stay in Puerto Rico, and there are no current plans to bring her back to America. Bob never remarried, he said, quote, "It's sad I went through a lot. Believe me, every time they'd find a body somewhere, I wondered, is it Patricia? Is it Patricia?" Patricia's sister, Gloria Smith, had always feared the worst. She said, quote, "It was hard on all of us because my mother, her sister, and myself worried about her constantly. We're very happy to know that Patty is alive and well." This discovery provided closure to her family, allowing them to move forward, knowing that Patricia was safe and receiving the care she needed. Rudy Farias was born in Houston, Texas in October of 1997 to parents Rudolph Farias, a Houston police officer, and mother Jamie Santana. Rudy faced significant trauma in his life. In 2011, he lost his older brother, who was like a best friend to him, in a motorcycle crash. Just 3 years later, Rudy's father took his own life via gunshot. His father was under investigation by Internal Affairs at the time for ticket fraud. Rudy lived with his mother in a house near Tidewell and Park Drive in Northeast Houston. In 2015, he was suffering from depression and dealing with past traumas. On March 6, 2015, at 6 p.m., Rudy went out to walk his 2 dogs. This was the last time that Rudy was seen. A few hours later, one of the dogs returned home, and the next morning, the second dog showed up. Both of them were missing their leashes, and Rudy was nowhere to be found. Rudy was reported missing by his mother, Janie, on March 7th in 2015. Janie said that Rudy was a kind-hearted and loving teenager and would never voluntarily leave his family behind, as he cherished them dearly. The search for Rudy started the day he was reported missing, and searchers had to deal with rain-soaked fields and flooded roads. Collaborating with Rudy's family and detectives, volunteers uncovered a backpack linked to Rudy and were able to follow up on a lead from a witness who told police that they had seen Rudy near a catering truck. Multiple potential sightings in different places complicated the search operation. Despite extensive searching, Rudy remained missing, and eventually the trail went cold. 8 years later, a Good Samaritan spotted Rudy, now 25 years old, unresponsive in front of a church. They promptly contacted emergency services. Rudy's mother said that he had cuts and bruises, leading her to believe that he had endured severe abuse. Rudy was only able to speak a few words before curling into a fetal position, indicating the extent of his past trauma. She said that Rudy is currently receiving the care he needs in order to overcome what happened to him. While Rudy had been found, a multitude of unanswered questions still lingered. What transpired during those lost years? Where had he been? And why did he go missing in the first place? The answer to these questions would be found in the weeks preceding Rudy's discovery. Police say what they uncovered was far more disturbing than they had ever imagined. Investigators soon announced that Rudy had actually not been missing for the last 8 years. He had returned home the day after he was reported missing and had been living with his mother for all this time. Over multiple years, investigators repeatedly searched their residence, with both Janie and Rudy providing false identities when engaging with different patrol officers. The reason behind the police's inability to recognize Rudy during questioning stemmed from his mother presenting photos of him at 14 years old for the missing person flyers. Jeannie told people, and Rudy went along with the story, that the young man that they saw coming and going from her house was actually her nephew. Jeannie continued to deceive police by remaining adamant that Rudy was still missing. Whenever relatives would visit Jeannie's home, She would tell Rudy to lock himself in his room and to make no sound. While some neighbors say they never saw Rudy in all of those 8 years, some recall seeing him. One neighbor said that Rudy would visit her house regularly to chat, but she did not know that he had actually been reported missing. She said that Rudy used to come into her garage and recalls that he would, quote, chill with my cousin's son and daughter. She said that he appeared depressed whenever he visited them, however, but never said why. After making a full recovery, Rudy was interviewed by a local television station. Rudy recalls he spent most of his time inside his house, and other than accompanying his mother to her job as an overnight security guard, never left. Rudy explained that his mother assured him if police ever knew who he was, he would be arrested. One time, Rudy got pulled over while driving his mother's car, and she specifically instructed him to give the officer a fake name. He told the interviewer, quote, she never locked me in or handcuffed me or anything like that. I had free will to leave it, just felt like brainwashing. Honestly, Rudy said that his mother confused and manipulated him. Of his captivity, he recalls, quote, she locked me in there pretty much mentally, just that she was my only parent. She was the only person I really had besides my brother. So when I lost my brother, I didn't have anybody to teach me how to live and how to have confidence or trust in myself. Although he said his mother pushed certain boundaries, such as forcing him to sleep in her bed, he specifies that she never assaulted him. The motive behind her actions remains elusive, but speculation suggests Jeannie wanted financial gain through her son's false disappearance claims. Around 2 weeks after his reported disappearance, in March of 2015, a GoFund campaign was started by his mom, aiming to aid in finding the missing teenager. Donors contributed a total of $2,025 to the cause. While Jeannie might have gained somewhat financially from this initiative, no donations had occurred since 2015, leaving the true motive of her captivity of her son uncertain. Despite police now saying that they know the 8-year disappearance was nothing fraud, Jeannie is not currently facing any criminal charges. Houston police have since asked the public to, quote, respect the ongoing investigation. Authorities say they had also connected Rudy with victim services resources in order to help him recover. Rudy has since been living away from his mother and does not want any contact with her. He says that now he is hoping to put the ordeal behind him and start fresh in 2024.